All right, hi Sam. Thanks for coming on to the podcast and whatever else we're doing here with the video.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ant.
So you and I met not that long ago, through a mutual colleague, someone I worked with. You worked with in the military, and we were just having a coffee. And after about 20 minutes, I thought, oh man, I wish I had a microphone and my recording equipment here, because the conversation we were having was just, right on point to what I want this podcast to be about.
Oh, it's good to hear.
So it's good that we get to take two and do a reenactment. So I think the thing that I'm most fascinated in talking to you, and hopefully some listeners will be as well, is the mindset behind very long distance swimming. You've done a crossing of the English Channel. And now, for whatever reason, you're going to go back and not just do it again, but do a double where you go from England to France, stop for no more than 5 minutes, and then back again. So we'll get into all of that because that's really intriguing. But I mean, tell me a little bit about your story and how you find yourself at this point.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I often ask myself the same thing: how on earth did I become a marathon swimmer? If you asked me perhaps 12 months ago, I was purely a pool sprinter, 50 metres, 100 metres. If I was to go into the ocean, and here on the Sunshine Coast, every now and then there's some ocean racing, and I would do 1 kilometre, and that's my limit. That was my limit then.
Only a year ago?
Yeah, only a year ago. I just shied away from anything long. I found that by the end of 1 kilometre, I was absolutely wrecked, which seems weird, but 18 months ago was when I decided to swim the English Channel. For 4 or 5 years, I was in the pool swimming. And the reason I took up swimming 5 years ago was rehab for my back. After many, many years of cycling and, competitive cycling, I'd hop off the bike and I couldn't stand up for about 5 minutes. It just took me forever to stand up. So after seeing a physio and doctor and my partner Helen just said, why don't you hop in the pool? I used to swim as a kid. The last thing I ever thought I would do would be following that black line up and down. And I said, there's no way I can do that. But if I didn't do that, I'd get fat. Basically.
Right. And so when you said you were swimming as a kid, were you a really good swimmer? Were you a competitive swimmer?
Oh, look, I was a competitive swimmer. I could make it to state championships, but from memory, I don't think I ever made a final. So I wouldn't have been top 10 at anything.
Right.
But
you were a swimmer.
I was a swimmer. Yeah. I was a swimmer. And
yeah.
Swimming's one of those sports. It's probably the most technical sport out there. If you didn't do it as a kid, if you didn't learn the technique as a kid, then it's almost impossible as an adult to pick it up and be really efficient at it. And I see, there's many people that I swim with, adults who didn't swim as a kid. I swim with a group of triathletes, and you can pick the people straight away who weren't swimmers as kids. It's really unfortunate, but it highlights how important it is to get your kids swimming at an early age. It's a sport that it's no weight bearing. It's so good to your body. Being able to take it up as an adult, I'm extremely lucky that I did do it as a kid.
And so you've got a bad back through some chronic cycling stuff. You go into the pool purely for rehab.
Yeah.
What's the trigger? How do you go from I'm doing a bit of rehab here to I know what I'm going to do, swim the English Channel? What's the mindset shift?
Yeah. Well, I guess the first part was in the pool to do some rehab. And with myself, I can't do exercise for the sake of exercise. I need to compete.
Right.
I need to be racing. And so I then started doing some masters racings, and what I really focused on was 50s and 100 metres, because I was actually, I'm actually okay at it. But then I got to this point where I just wanted my Everest moment. you know, I guess you get to this point in life, you know, sort of a middle-aged bloke, and you start to sort of think about, you know, where your life is, and you realise that, you know, sort of as a kid, as a teenager, you know, a young adult, you're competitive, you've got all these goals and everything like that, and you get to, say, your mid-20s, late 20s, and you start, you know, you're in your career, you're starting to, you know, have a family, and you're starting to save up for a house and all those kinds of things, and then you realise sort of 15, 20 years later that you forgot about yourself.
Right.
And that's where I just felt, I need that Everest moment. I need that thing that just makes me feel very good about myself, you know, make me feel great about myself, but something that really sort of highlighted to me that I have got what it takes to do something that is extraordinary.
And was this your first Everest, so to speak? I mean, was it the first time that you've done something truly epic, and therefore it was a massive search within yourself, or you knew you had that ability going into the Channel attempt?
No, and I think the big part about the English Channel was I wanted to see if I had what it took mentally to string several months together of training.
Right.
You know, whether I could get out there and motivate myself every single day to, you know, go down to the beach and swim 6 hours by myself in the ocean. And it wasn't so much the English Channel part that I found daunting. It was the training, and, you know, being in my own mind for, you know, for hours and hours and hours on end each day. That was the part that I didn't know if I had what it took.
I get that, and when you first told me that, like 6 hours by yourself in the ocean, you know, you can't listen to music. You're obviously not having a chat with a friend. There's no podcasts or anything like that. It's just your head.
Exactly, and you know, I know that you meditate, and I don't meditate because I think that swimming, you know, basically face down, blowing bubbles. I'm very much meditating each time I go out, and I get asked this question quite a lot. You know, sort of, what do you think about? And if I think back across all of the swims that I've done, I don't really think I think about anything.
You count though, right?
Yes, I count. And this is, so, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you've got the worst crappy song in your head that's just so annoying, pretty much every morning I have that. I wake up and I've got this annoying song. So I'll be swimming, say, a 6 hour swim in the ocean, and I've got the same song on repeat. And usually I only know the chorus, which makes it even worse. So I know 30 seconds of this song. But I also, I count to 10. So every second stroke, so 1, you know, every time I breathe, 2, 3, and I count to 10. And do that for 10 hours. Yes.
and so the counting piece, is that, I mean, is that something to do with technique, or is it just to clear your head from extraneous thoughts, or?
I think a big part of it is it just clears me, you know, sort of, it gives me a focus, and I think in some part perhaps I'm looking forward to the end of that 10, and then I start again. I look forward to the end of the 10, you know, sort of really chunking it down. So, you know, for my long ocean swims, I feed every 30 minutes, and I break that 30 minutes down, I guess, into sort of, you know, when I swim by myself down at Mooloolaba on the Sunshine Coast, I do an over and back course. It's 1 kilometre over and a kilometre back. So, you know, get over there, that's 15 minutes, get back, you know, there's my half hour, hop out and have a feed. And in between I'm counting to 10, so it's sort of just, I guess, chunking everything, breaking everything down into smaller pieces, but also clearing my mind so that I can't really think about how boring it is, how uncomfortable I feel, how sore I am, how hungry, how thirsty, how cold, you know, so many different things.
Yeah, it was interesting when you said that you don't meditate, and I immediately sort of jumped on that and said, actually, that's exactly what it is, because in essence, meditation when you're focusing on the breath or whatever. It's just you're focusing on something fairly mundane to clear out all of the crap that normally goes through our mind. So you go out for a 6-hour swim. You're by yourself. You've got nothing but a crappy chorus of a crappy song in your head and counting to 10. How do they get dark? I mean, so if I go on a ridiculously long run, sometimes it gets dark, but then I have things to distract myself. So I could put on a podcast, or I can just eat whenever I want, or I could just stop. You can't really do that when you're swimming. So how do you just keep going on a 6-hour swim?
I think one of the things is that I visualised when I was training for the English Channel. I was visualising what it was going to be like.
Right.
I spent a huge amount of time visualising. And so when I was in those sort of periods of, what on earth am I doing? This is dull. I'd start to visualise, and get all excited. But also I had this saying that kept going around in my head. I didn't come this far, I'd only come this far.
Right.
I didn't do the last month or 2 months or even the last 3 hours, 4 hours of swimming to stop there. I've got another 2 hours to go, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to swim the English Channel. I want to be one of the lucky few who have been able to string this training together both physically and mentally and get across. And so just, I didn't come this far, to only come this far was probably my greatest motivator.
Interesting. And when you're in the water by yourself, particularly in Australia, so I'm coming to sharks because I've just moved back to the ocean.
Yes.
And I don't have a shark phobia, but I'm certainly conscious of them. And so if I go out into the water, I make sure there's other people out there. So if there's 2 other people out there, I've only got a 33% chance of getting bitten by a shark. But sometimes you're out there by yourself for really long periods of time. And you mentioned something to me last time we chat was sometimes you'll just wake up in the morning, you'll think of a shark, and then for the next 6 hours, that's all you can think about. But it's still out there.
Yes. Oh yeah,
I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I've got that in me.
Yes. It's funny. I had sometimes I would have a shark procedure go through my head. Shark attack procedure.
Yep.
And it was. I don't know why I used to do this, but basically, if I got bitten by a shark, I'd figure if it's Mooloolaba, it's only going to be a small shark, so it's going to take a chunk out of my leg or something like that. I would be perhaps 100 metres from the beach. On a good day, I'd do that in a minute.
Yep.
Get to the beach, there'd be someone walking along.
Yep.
I'd give them Helen's mobile number and tell them to text them, because I know that if they called her, she wouldn't answer the phone.
Yep. A lot of the world. Yep.
Text. Sam's just been bitten by a shark, but he's okay, and then call the ambulance.
Right. But clearly, so you're in essence using that procedure to stop the thought or even the fear being debilitating.
Yeah, that's right. Some of the people that I have swum with in the ocean just had this huge fear of what could be out there, and there have been times when we've been out there and we have seen some sharks sort of a metre and a half long. There was one occasion I was swimming with a friend, another English Channel swimmer, and we stopped it in the shallows, sort of about waist deep, and I looked under the water and I saw the shark curled around her feet.
Oh my God.
And I popped my head back up, and I didn't know what to say to Kate, and I said, "There's a shark at your feet." And the first thing she did was put her head under the water and try and find it and chase it. And it was just this sort of realization of, it wasn't there to hurt us or harm us. It was there because it was intriguing. Right. It was intrigued in us, and it just wanted to check us out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So talk me through the logistics now of an English Channel attempt, because it's restricted, right? You can't just book yourself into a hotel in Dover and then off you go in the morning and.
Yeah, exactly. So firstly, it's a tightly controlled thing, as what climbing Everest is. You buy a permit almost. There's about 10 boats that are licensed to take swimmers across. And so because there's only 10 boats, you've got to book your boat about 2 years, 3 years in advance in some instances. And so your preparation starts for a lot of people 2 years out, particularly the weak swimmers. And I've seen a lot of really weak swimmers take on the challenge. And so, basically booking this boat 2 years out and then trying to work out what your training plan is and working there. As soon as I booked the boat, the first thing that I did after that was I recognised that I needed a coaching team. Mm-hmm. I needed to surround myself with the people who had been there, who had done that, right, and also have a lot of experience of other English Channel swimmers. And I'm an ex-engineer, and I love the statistics and probability of life, basically. And so using their knowledge and expertise to give me the greatest chance of getting across, that they've gathered from the dozens of people that they've helped get across. And my coach is a guy called Trent Grimsey down in Brisbane. He's actually the current world record holder for the English Channel.
Is that right?
Yeah, and absolutely brilliant guy. If you met him, you wouldn't even know he was a world record holder. But he's helped dozens. I'd probably say he's at about 100 swimmers now. Wow. That he's helped get across the channel. Absolutely fantastic. But also diet, nutrition is a big part of it. My swim was 11 hours and 2 minutes. And we had to train and plan our feeding as well, because when you're doing something like that, you have to work out how you're going to get the calories in. And your body doesn't absorb calories very well when it's going that long, but also when it's horizontal. So I had to find a nutritionist, dietitian, who was experienced in ultramarathon swimming. And that lady was Tara Diversity, who's based up in Cairns. Just very lucky that I had these people here in Queensland. And these two people work with people right around the world. I'm very lucky.
So 11-hour swim, you're feeding every half an hour.
Yep.
So what do you eat 22 times on a channel?
Oh, geez. So basically everything is, it's high sugar.
Right.
And the reason for that is we don't want to dip into our fat stores because it's our fat that's keeping us warm. Sugar burns faster, it creates energy, it creates heat. And we're talking about cold water swimming. And what we prepare for is 16 degrees in the channel. It can, I know someone who did it in about 12 degrees, 13 degrees. When I did it, it was probably the hottest day for a whole decade, and the water was 20 degrees, right, which nobody ever has. Right. I was so lucky, but we had prepared for 16 degrees. So we have things like Staminate and ginger cordial, sort of a Milo Ovaltine kind of mix as well, and so we just rotate through all these drinks, so that we rotate so that the stomach doesn't get upset. A lot of English Channel swimmers get sick whilst they're out there, sort of seasickness, the fact that we're taking on so much sugar into the gut.
Wow.
Just all liquids.
Right. So, and you've got a boat with you?
Yes. Yeah, so we swim alongside a boat.
Yep.
So for 11 hours, all I was doing was looking at the side of this blue boat called Louise Jane. It had a white dolphin on the side, and interestingly, Helen, who was on the boat, didn't realise it had a dolphin on the side.
That's all you could see.
It's all this thing, and then, when I was saying I counted to 10, basically I felt like I was counting the dolphin every time. Right. There's one dolphin, there's two dolphins, right?
And was there points during the swim where you thought about quitting?
No. It's on this swim, on this day, everything came together. with the English Channel, you can only go out when the weather's right. And so we hired a guy out of London to act as our head of support, a guy called Tim Denyer. And he's taken over 100, 150 people across the channel. And basically the procedure is that at about 7 o'clock at night, you'll get a call from Tim, to say whether the swim's on or the swim's not on. And on this one particular night, on a Sunday night, we got the call, going to leave Dover Harbour at about 4:15 in the morning and go out. So in the morning we packed up all of our stuff and we made up all of our feeds, our 22 feeds.
Yep.
And I had my breakfast. I'd already finished, or basically done a 4-day. It turned out to be a 6-day carbo loading because the weather pushed us out a couple of days. And then we got down to Dover Harbour at 4 a.m. And the movie Cool Runnings?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so...
I didn't think you were going to go there. I'm interested to see the relevance here.
Yes, so...
Jamaican bobsled team to the channel.
So we arrived at Dover Harbour and it was just the most beautiful day. And there were a couple of other solo swimmers going out that day and also some relay teams. And they were all standing around in a group and I took my bags over and plonked them down in the middle and I felt like, the Jamaican bobsledder at the top of the hill, sort of feeling very, very Olympic today.
Right.
And that's exactly how I felt. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I introduced myself to everybody and said hi and having a chat and good luck everybody. And I was absolutely pumped. And then I saw Tim, and he called us about sort of 10 minutes before and he said, "Where are you?" I said, "Oh, we're about 5 minutes away." "All right, I'll talk to you when you get here." And then when we saw Tim at Dover Harbour, he said, "The boat's broken."
Oh my God.
And he said it's something that can't be fixed. It's the water pump, and we can't fix it. And at that moment, you've got two ways you can go. You can get angry or just go, "Well, there's nothing I can do about it." And Helen and I were both very sort of upset by it, I guess, because
You're primed.
we had 12 months of preparation going into this one moment to tell us that we can't go out. And we did a Facebook Live video because we had a lot of people following us back in Australia and just said, "Well, boat's broken and it is what it is." And then I had to go back over to the group and pick up my bags and say, "See you guys, my boat's broken." And everybody's face just dropped because they were in the same situation as me, having prepared for a year, some of them 2 years, 3 years. And just going, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. What's the point of getting upset? And so we drove back to Canterbury, which is where we were staying. And Helen and I basically sat on the couch for about an hour, 2 hours, silence.
Right.
Because by this stage, it's only about 4:30 in the morning. There's not a lot we could do. I'd already had breakfast at 3 a.m. I'd filled my body with a lot of sugar by that stage. Last thing I needed was to go back to bed and sleep, and you can't when you've had so much adrenaline going through your body. And so we just sat there for about an hour, 2 hours, and then we stood up, had a hug, had a cry, and then we thought, stuff it, let's just go out. We took the day off that day. We sort of mentally checked out, went and made some stupid videos, and just had a fun day, and then waited for the call later that day. We spoke to Tim Denyer again a couple of times during the day and said, "Look, we're still trying to fix this boat. We'll know by 5. We've got an engineer turning up at 5. We've got the parts, fingers crossed." Got to 5, no word. Got to 6, nothing. 7, nothing. And eventually got to 9 o'clock at night and we still hadn't heard anything. And it turned out that Tim was trying to call my Australian number. And what they were able to do was commandeer another boat because they couldn't get our boat fixed. Commandeered another boat, and we're so lucky that these two boat owners were friends and allowed us to go onto there. They had to throw another swimmer off their boat to accommodate us, and the reason they had an 18-hour swimmer on their boat, but there was a weather pattern coming in after about 8 hours, and they realised that if she went, she wouldn't have made it, and they said, "Yep, you can have the boat," because we were deemed to be under 12 hours. But it wasn't until 9 o'clock at night that we actually got the call to, "Yep, we've got a boat and we're going." And so that was it, sort of straight off to bed. And I think because we had already gone through the process the night before, all the excitement and the adrenaline had already gone. So it was now a formality. We'd already had that dry run. And I had just such a great sleep. I had about a 6-hour sleep, 7-hour sleep, something like that. I had my lowest resting heart rate of the entire year, and it got down to, I think, 41. Woke up feeling brilliant. Went through the same process as the day before. Breakfast, coffee, hydrating on some Jura and all those kinds of things, and got down to Dover Harbour, and luckily a boat turned up and took us.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history, basically the process is that, we motored for about 5 minutes to a beach just south of Dover called Shakespeare Beach. You dive off the boat, swim ashore, the boat sounds its horn once you've cleared the water, and then you're gone. Right. You start swimming. And I started swimming at about 5 a.m. So the sun had just come up, and it was just this beautiful sunrise. It was glassy. The water was as smooth as anything you've ever seen.
Right.
There was no swell. There was no waves.
Perfect.
And for 8 hours, it was just absolutely perfect. And as I was swimming along, because I knew how far we were into the swim by my feet, every 30 minutes. And I also knew what feet I had coming up next. So I was able to really understand how far along I was. And I got to 1 hour, 2 hours and 3 hours. And I was flying, and I felt so good. And I, said to the guys on the boat, "I just feel brilliant." And then, head back down and kept swimming. And there's these different sections where we get into the international waters, and we move through shipping lanes because it's an extremely busy shipping area. The guys on the boat would pop up signs to let me know sort of physically where we were. 6 hours, 8 hours, I was still at the same pace, and I just felt absolutely fantastic. And it was then that I was starting to recognise all the work I put in over the previous months, all the time that I'd been face down, on the Sunshine Coast in the ocean, for hours and hours on end. 20 hours a week with my face in the water. All of it was for this moment.
Right.
And it all of a sudden just made sense. And I realised that mentally I had made it.
And then the last 3 hours were, where are you physically versus mentally? It sounds like you were in a very good space mentally. But physically as well?
Yeah, mentally and physically. Right. I didn't, apart from, some jellyfish stings in my face, I was good.
Right.
Then at 8 hours, we knew that this weather pattern was coming through, and so we started to get some white horses. So it started to chop up quite a bit. It rained, which obviously doesn't affect me in the water, but the guys on the boat put the plastics down on the side of the boat.
Right.
And all of a sudden, here I am, shut off from the boat.
Yeah.
That was demoralising when I just gone, "What are you doing?" And I was starting to get angry. You know, this is sort of 8 hours, 9 hours, you know, out in the ocean, and here they are screening me off because they're getting wet.
Right.
I was going, you've got to be kidding me. And Helen knew that I would not be happy with that, so she stuck her head through a hole. And yeah, luckily, sort of, she knew sort of how I would be mentally if she saw that. And yeah, luckily she redeemed it for everybody on the boat, because at that point I was not a happy camper. And
what's it like when you touch down, when you put your feet on solid ground, you know, in France? Yeah,
well, perhaps the most surreal part is swimming along, and then all of a sudden you can see the bottom.
Right.
And you haven't seen anything but, you know, deep blue water and jellyfish for 11 hours. And then you can see rocks and sand. And after sort of, it takes a while for it to register, but then you realise, hang on, that's France. And so we landed at this place called Cap Gris-Nez, which is the closest point to Dover. And as an English Channel swimmer, that's the most ideal point to land at, and it's cliffs as well. We landed at low tide, so I had to, when you do the swim, you have to clear the water. So I had to pull myself up over rocks. I got, you know, cuts down me over the sharp rocks, and then stand up on these rocks that have just been exposed by the tide, that are all slippery.
Yeah.
They're wobbly, you know, they're on a lean. My legs don't work because I haven't used them for 11 hours trying to stand up. And then you finally stand up, and then you realise that you've made it. You know, you have this moment of just looking around. It's not the biggest hurrah moment, I think, because you've just, you know, you've been doing it for 11 hours. It's sort of, thank God it's over. But just the sense of satisfaction. It's, you know, it's not a big party moment, but just internally in your mind, just this whole satisfaction of, you know, everything came together. You know, I did exactly what all the experts told me to do. I didn't once deviate from my training plan, didn't once deviate from my diet plan, did everything Tim Denny told me to do, who was on the boat. And yeah, you know, it made me realise that I can do more if, you know, I surround myself with the right people. A tradition of swimming the channel is you collect a rock. So you collect a rock from France, and you know, between Helen and myself, we've got 4 kids, so I had to collect 4 rocks.
Yeah.
You know, a rock for them, rock for myself, a rock for Helen.
Right.
And then, you know, the only thing I could do is shove them down my budgie smugglers. And they're, you know, good sizable rocks. Yeah. You know, they fit in your palm. Yeah, each one fits in your palm, so 6 of those down your togs. Not an easy swim back to the boat.
No, I can imagine. And so this really should be the end of this interview. You know, we're done. You've done the channel. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you're going to do it again, but with a double. What the hell would you want to do that for?
I think one of the big things that I was looking for when I did the channel was I wanted to know how far I could push my body and push my mind. I wanted to know what it's going to take to put me in the fetal position, basically. Mm-hmm. You know, where I'm an absolute blubbering mess on the floor. And I thought that swimming the English Channel was going to do that. But I hopped on the boat and stood in the wheelhouse with the crew for the 2.5 hour trip back to England, just, you know, chatting to them. And, you know, just I stood the whole time and just felt really good. The next morning we jetted off to France for a bit of a holiday, and it took about 4 days for my lats to stop hurting, and, you know, it took 4 days for me to be able to put my arms above my head. But during that whole time, I felt like I hadn't achieved what I'd set out to feel. I felt that I wanted to do something harder. and I just want to find that moment, that fetal position moment. And so I figure, well, there's only about 20 people in the world who have ever done a double crossing.
Wow.
And a quarter of those are Australians. And I figure, stuff it, it's going to be a 22-hour, 24-hour swim, something like that. If that doesn't put me in a fetal position, then, geez, I'm kind of hoping that it will, because if it doesn't, who knows where I'm going to end up.
Yeah, and so it's the same process. You go from Dover over to France, and then what's the rule on the turnaround?
Yeah, so basically, you've got to clear the water at France. Nobody can touch you at all when you're doing your swim. So sometimes, for example, we'll land at, you might land at a beach. If you land at the beach, there's quite often some Frenchies there, just enjoying the beach for the day. But they love channel swimmers coming in, so they all get excited, come down and congratulate you and everything like that. But if one of those people touches me, it disqualifies me from the swim.
Right.
So basically, our crew are going to have signs in French as, do not touch the swimmer.
Right.
I've then got, sort of 5-15 minutes or so to get back in the water. It all depends what the air temp's going to be like. It's probably going to be cold. The more time I spend out of the water, the colder I'm going to get. But also the more time I spend out of the water, the longer it's going to take me to do my attempt.
Because the clock doesn't stop.
No, exactly. Right. That's exactly right. So basically, I've got enough time to, put on some more channel grease on my sort of chafing points. That white film that you always see channel swimmers in. And maybe have something a little bit more solid to eat. Hop back in the water and do it again.
Wow. And do you change your training at all, or is it all just a mental shift?
Yeah. So actually, one of my friends is doing a double crossing attempt this year, and she's only 17. Brianna Thompson.
17.
17. She's 17.
Has she done it? Has she done
it? She did it last year. Happy to say I was 50 minutes faster, even though she had a crappy day, sort of weather-wise.
And 16.
Yeah. But I still beat her by 50 minutes.
Wow.
But she's up here this weekend to do 2 6-hour swims back to back. So she'll go 6 hours Saturday, 6 hours Sunday. She's swimming about 70 kilometres a week. Which she was doing for her single attempt. So really, the main difference that we do for a double attempt is just those 6-hour back-to-backs.
Right.
Physically after 6 hours, you're feeling pretty stuffed.
No doubt.
The next day you pull up quite sore.
Yeah.
But just having to get in the water and do it again, sort of use that first half an hour to warm up, to stretch the muscles out, to try and get over the pain, sort of using your pain medication regime to do whatever you can. But mentally really trying to get in that right space where you can, I can do this second leg. And with the double, you hop out at halfway, and the only way I believe that I can really get back in the water is to consider that first leg the warm up.
Right.
Because it's really that, it's that return leg where, everything becomes extremely difficult. That's where the pain through your shoulders is just excruciating, where you've been awake for, more than 24 hours. You're probably, starting to get quite hypothermic. Your mind's starting to get, foggy. Really trying to sort of stay motivated and, keep the mind sharp, keep the body warm, and just hope to God that you make it.
Wow. So I'm fascinated in just the theme of this podcast, just about, everybody's got dreams. Many of them many of us sort of have our dreams, and then life takes over and we sort of lose track of all of that. And, hopefully this, as people are listening to this, maybe they're rekindling some of their previous dreams or coming up with a new one, or, considering some sort of challenge regardless of how epic. And I'm always fascinated by, I'm trying to understand what separates those people that can get off the couch, surround themselves by, people that have been there, done that, have the expertise, formulate a progressive plan towards achieving an ultimate goal and then sticking to it. And then those who can't do that for whatever reason. So you're clearly an athlete, but you're still very human. You're not a Lance Armstrong kind of
not an elite athlete by any stretch.
Yeah.
No. And this is something that I've pondered a lot, sort of just before my challenge swim and post, and something I get asked quite a lot. Why? Why did you do it? And how do you do it? I think the biggest thing is that the reason why I wanted to do it, my purpose, was the one, the biggest motivating thing, to prove to myself that I had what it took to do something extraordinary, to have something to show my kids, how, with determination and focus, you can achieve anything. And, there's times when I'm out in the ocean and I'd have a little cry, when I'd be thinking about those kinds of things, when I'd be thinking about our kids, being motivated to get out and do stuff, to, get up off the couch. And so because it's not easy getting up at, say, 4:30 in the morning every morning and going swimming 6-7 days a week.
Right.
There's nothing easy about it. But using the power of your purpose got me through so many training sessions. And, I would say that pretty much every single training session, there is a point that I have where I think to myself, I could just hop out right now. I could hop out. But then I think about why I'm doing it. Why am I swimming right now? And it's to get stronger, to do a double crossing, to get faster. And why do I want to do a double crossing? It's to show myself that I can do something that is truly world class. Sort of when I do it, I'll be 46. Mm-hmm. And I think just to be, the 20th, 21st person in the world to have ever achieved this thing, as a 46-year-old, when you feel like, life has already passed, your chance to do anything amazing has passed. But I feel I've got this opportunity. And for the kids to, I guess, see that they've got this, this dad who goes out and, to many people think it's crazy, but to the kids, they now think it's normal.
Right, yeah. How powerful is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They see that getting up at 4:30 in the morning is normal. Particularly two of our kids, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, right into swimming. So, and it's great because I can go to the pool with them. So they do their squad whilst I do my squad. And they don't whinge about it. And they know why they're swimming. They're only swimming because they want to swim.
Yeah.
Not once do I ever push them. I'll ask them, do you want to get up and go swimming? But yeah, they want to go swimming because they just want to be faster. They want to beat, the bigger kid. They want to do well at their school swimming and, and feel proud about getting their little blue ribbons. Yeah. So there's so many things that really motivate me, but the big purpose of, the purpose of why I'm doing it is the overriding thing that gets me out there, gets me off the couch, and keeps me going. Fantastic.
So that's all I have. Is there anything else that you want to talk through, or or bring up. We can take it anywhere you want.
Yeah, I think I think as you would know, as a middle-aged bloke, you tend to sort of lose your way.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I started to get to, which is why I wanted to go out and do this. And you don't need to go and do a, off the bat, an English Channel or, sort of climb Everest or an ultra marathon or anything like that. That saying that I said earlier, I didn't come this far to only come this far. I came this far to go further, to be stronger. Rings true. Setting those achievable goals and, those smaller steps of, I want to, and something that is achievable but is a stretch. Going out and, I just want to get off the couch and do a 5K run straight without stopping. For a lot of people, would be extremely hard. But if you put your mind to it and have the right purpose, that thing that's really going to motivate you, I think that, you can really then take that first step. And once you achieve that 5Ks or whatever that first goal is, don't stop there. Didn't come this far, only come this far.
Yeah, it's great.
Go to 10Ks, go to half marathon or a marathon, or do a triathlon, or and the same thing with business. People sort of look at the successful entrepreneurs out there, the big businesses that they've built, but they all started off small. They had these small steps all along the way. And, with every single step you gain confidence. With every single step you gain more experience and more skills. And if you want to be one of those, bigger entrepreneurs, for example, or one of these athletes doing an English Channel or an ultra marathon like yourself, recognize what it takes. You can't do it off the bat, but if that's where you want to be, follow that journey. The journey of my English Channel swim has been the absolute most amazing thing, one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my life. The people that I've met along the way, English Channel swimmers, there is no defined English Channel swimmer. They're all a little bit chubby because they've got their layer of insulation, their layer of brown fat. But, some of them, Brianna, 17, another one, Mary Stoddart, 63, took her 17 hours, not a swimmer, but she just decided that she was going to swim the English Channel. And, her and her husband would get out in the bay at Redcliffe Bay, pretty much every weekend and get out for 6 hours. She'd get out quite often and do 10-hour swims because she knew hers was going to be long.
Right.
But 63. Mentally, 63, because it's what she wanted to do.
It reminds me the first 100-mile ultra I did, finished terrific, achieved the goal, and was quite humbling as an experience. But then the award ceremony was in the high school gym in Leadville in Colorado, and by the time I entered the gym, my ego was starting to build, and I was starting to get a bit chuffed with myself. And then the formal ceremony started. And they made a special announcement to the oldest person in the field that had accomplished it, 73 years old. And it just brought me right back down to earth, because I thought bluntly that I was pretty good for finishing at what I was like 38. And here's a 73-year-old who only came in, not even an hour slower than me. And so I keep thinking back to that, of just how much life we have left in us. So you've done it 46, this lady's 63. The guy who did Leadville, pounding over the knees at 73 years old. I mean, we've just got so much life left in us. That's so much more we can achieve. And I think that's a generation ago, people weren't thinking that way. But now we are able to live such a life and be so healthy if we engineer our lives to do that. So my personal goal is to be the fastest 100-year-old in the world. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't really matter. It's sort of within myself. It's to keep me focused on I can still be achieving things and living, well into that, triple figures.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, and I completely agree with you. I was lucky to be at Commonwealth Games trials down the Gold Coast for swimming, and there was this guy there, George Coronis, right, 100 years old, and Swimming in Australia had basically effectively cleared the pool for George to do a world record attempt at the 50 metres freestyle.
Awesome.
And absolutely, I was lucky to be pool deck at that time, and the stands were full. It was electric. We had actually just swum right before George, so that's why we were pool deck. And George was sort of walked down. He came out through the smoke, and the cameras are on him, and
like Rocky.
It was everything was rock star about it. And he got down there and he dived in and just went for it. And he beat the record from memory by about 30 seconds or so.
It's amazing.
And the best part about it was he hopped out and he said, I jumped in the water and I just went for it. And he said, he took up swimming when he was 80. So he's only been swimming for 20 years. But he said, I realised that if you sit around, you die.
Right.
And so that's why he goes swimming every single day. And here he is setting world records. Anybody who has a world record, you have to call them an elite athlete, regardless of how old they are. But it just made me realise that, we spend too much of our time just sitting around, just waiting for things to happen. Almost sounds like a Dr. Seuss.
Right.
A Dr. Seuss book, but we do. We all wait for something to happen. The only way you're going to get stuff done is by getting off your ass and actually doing it. And for me, it was getting off my ass and getting into the pool. And the first, when I took up swimming 5 years ago, I would probably say the first 3 months were terrible. I was in the slowest lane. It just hurt. I felt slow. I didn't enjoy it. But then, then I really started to form the habit of swimming. Form the habit of getting off my ass is probably the biggest thing. And if you can get off your ass and out the door, you're 90% of the way there.
Definitely, yeah.
So just forming the habit and understanding why you're doing it. Because I knew that if I didn't do it, I'd just get fat.
Right.
And I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be that person that the kids would see.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be fit. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be inspiring to the kids and, motivated. And I think just so many people in this world, all they need to do is just work out why they want to do something and then get off their ass and get out the door.
Beautiful. Sam, thanks very much, mate.
Thanks, Ant.
Ripper.